Hello everyone. So today we're going to attempt to finish all the problems in CheckiO under initiation. Here we can see, let's click into it. I have completed all of them with the exception of the last one. I'm going to ask you guys for help on this one. If you haven't seen my first video, we went through a few of these. Click on the link that you see above here to go ahead and check out that video. But again, today we're going to finish the rest of these problems. Now, just a reminder that on a few of them, I may give you the answers, but I'm gonna try not to, because the purpose of these activities is so that you can practice and you can get better. It wouldn't be beneficial to you if I just gave you the answer. Now, on a few occasions I will, but I'm gonna try my best just to guide you so you can get to the answer on your own, okay? So let's get started. We're gonna start off with duplicate zeros. And here, basically, we're gonna be taking a list and we're just gonna duplicate all the zeros. So here you see 1, 0. Here you see that 0 duplicated. Okay, here's the other 0. Okay. So how are we gonna do this? Let's get started. So I'm gonna write some code over here. So we're gonna write define duplicate zeros, and I think they call it donuts in this problem. Okay, so first of all, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a list and we're gonna create a new list. Okay, so in order to do that, let's go ahead and say new list equals, we're gonna create an empty list. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to go through the list and we want to check if we encounter a 0. Okay, so how do we do that? We're going to start off with a for loop, and let's say we'll say n in donuts. Okay, so what does this mean here? So I'm saying let's make this a little clearer. For number in donuts. So donuts is basically referring to this object here, and this object is basically the list that you're gonna pass in. So for example, if you pass in this list, this is the equivalent to donuts, okay? So we're gonna say for number in donuts. So for every single number in this list, we're gonna do something, okay? First of all, we need to check if it's a 0. So we're gonna say if the number is equal to 0, what are we gonna do? Well, we want to, first of all, I'm gonna write some pseudocode here. So again, I'm not gonna give you the answer. I want you to try to get to this on your own. On this line, you're gonna go ahead and append to that new list, okay? So I'll give you one, new list dot append. And what do we want to append? Well, of course, we want to take that number and we want to add it to that list, okay? Now remember, if the number is equal to 0, we want to duplicate it, okay? So not only are we appending a number, we're also appending a 0 here. So again, this is pseudocode. This is not valid code. We're also appending a 0 here. Okay, so you have to figure out the line of code that's going to say that. Okay, now what if so we're going to iterate through the list. If the number is equal to 0, we're going to go ahead and add it to the list. We're going to add that number to the list, and we're going to stick on another 0. Okay, now if it's not a 0, what are we going to do? So here we say else. So if this is not a 0, what are we gonna do here? Well, we're gonna just take that number and we're just gonna append it. Okay, append the number, and then finally you're gonna give me this new list. Okay, so again, I'll write some more pseudocode. Give me list. And give me new list. And remember, how do I return something is going to be with a return statement. Okay? So, remember, we're going to create a new list. We're going to iterate through that list. If that number is a 0, we want to go ahead and take that number and put it in here, and we also want to duplicate it. So you have to figure out what we're going to write here. And remember, if it's not a 0, we just want to add it to the list. So you have to figure out how are we going to add it to the list. And then finally, what's the statement that you're going to return the new list. Okay, so that should be duplicate zeros. Let's move on to the next one. We'll move on to number length. So again, these I finished in the last video, so please go ahead and check that out. All right, number length. How are we going to figure this one out? So, so we want to insert a number, and I just want to know how many digits are in there. Now, unfortunately, I can't iterate through a number here. Okay, so I can't say for number in this value, just how many numbers are there. You can't really do that. Okay. However, we can turn that into a string. So let's see how I'm going to do this. So let's say I'm going to say number equals 10. Okay, and there's my number. Now, if I want to iterate through this number, right now Python thinks that this is just one thing right here. Okay, so let me prove that to you. We're going to get the length of that number, and it should say 1. Oh, well, I actually can't get anything because this is not, you can't take the length of a number here. However, you can take the length of a string. So how do we take that number and turn it into a string? Well, we'll write str number, and here this should turn this number 10 into the string of 10. Now I can go ahead and iterate through that number. Okay, so let's turn that. Let's say number. Let's turn it to a string. Okay, so now it's a string. It's not a number. I should be able to get that length now. Number. So what should this give me? This should give me 2, right? So notice I have 2. So in one line of code, you're going to turn this number into a string. Okay, you're going to turn that number into a string, and then you're going to give me the length of that number. Okay, so length and number. Okay, so this right here should give me the same exact thing. Okay, again, let's turn that back to integers, just so you see that it does indeed work. Okay, we have a string now. I'm sorry, we have a digit, an integer, and we're going to do the same thing over here. Copy and paste, and I should get an output of 2. Okay, let's try that again. Let's say number equals 1,000. Okay, if I try the same method, I should get 4. Okay, so I kind of gave you the answer here. Okay, this is this is a key part of your answer. Okay, so good luck on that one. Let's go to the next one. Move on to most frequent. Here we go. Okay, so basically here we want to see which is the character that appears the most. Okay, so here we have A is going here the most. Okay, now here in this one I actually am going to show you the answer, because the way that I got this was through a library, which was statistics, I believe. Okay, so if you wanna look up more on that, Python library statistics, you can go ahead and learn about the statistics module. And what I grabbed was, I can't see it here, mode. So basically it basically gives me the element that comes out the most frequently. So let's take a look at the answer. So here, from statistics, import mode as M. So this is not needed. I just wanted to shorten this. So if I go ahead and delete that, I'm gonna change this over here. That's just so I don't have to keep writing mode whenever I want to write it. Okay, if I want to write import mode as L, then here I would use L. Okay, so let's not confuse anyone here. Okay, so we're gonna put mode. So basically, I'm grabbing the mode from statistics and I'm using it here. So all I'm doing is applying this mode to the data. I'm saying, hey, what's the most frequent occurring string in data? Return mode data. Let's go to end zeros. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna find out how many zeros are at the end. Okay, so here we see only one at the end. Here there's none. Okay, here there's one, and here there is none. So how do we do that? Now again, there's many different ways to solve it, but I'm going to show you the way that I solved it. Okay, so let's see. Let's write defined and zeros, and we're going to take an argument and we're going to call it number. Now, first of all, we want to make a counter because we're going to count how many zeros are at the end. So let's write counter, and we're going to start at 0. And basically, whenever we go through that list of numbers, every time it finds a 0, I want to add 1 to that counter. Now remember, I cannot iterate through an integer. I need to change it into a string. Okay? So how do we do that? Let's take number, and we want to turn that into a string. And how do we do that? Okay. Now we can go ahead and go through the list. Now again, how do we iterate for, let's say n? For n in number, okay, what are we gonna do? Now this is not correct here, okay, for n in number, because right now we're going through the beginning of the list. Remember, they want you to find the zeros at the end of the list. So we can do this. There's a method that's called reversed, and it'll basically flip it for us, okay? So for n in reversed number, now remember, so I'm gonna write some pseudocode here, and you're gonna try to figure this out. If n is equal to, now remember, this is a string, okay? So if I say if n is equal to 0, it's not gonna work because it's a string right now. So we have to turn that into a string. If n is equal to 0, well, what are we gonna do? We're gonna add to our counter. Add to counter, and if you don't know how to do that, you're gonna say, I'll give you just this one. Counter plus equals 1. Okay? So if again, this is pseudocode, so it's not gonna work here. If n is equal to 0, we wanna add to that counter, okay? And remember, what if it doesn't? Okay, I'm gonna let you figure this out. What if it doesn't? I'll just write it else. Okay. Else, what are we gonna do if that number does not equal 0? Well, we don't want to add it to the counter, right? We don't want to do anything. So what would you write here to go ahead and stop the counting? Okay. And then finally, you need to give me back the answer. Okay, so you need to return the answer. Okay, so again, let's go through it. We want to create a counter. We want to take that number, turn it into a string. And we want to iterate through it, but we want to go backwards. So this is where this comes in. Okay, you need to figure out if n is equal to 0, we want to add to the counter. If it doesn't equal to 0, you want to stop counting and you want to return the final count. Okay, let's move on to the next one. All right, so this one's pretty simple. So I want to create a function that's going to return 3 elements. I want to get the first one, I want to get the third one, and I want to get the second to last. Okay, so how do we do that? So let's go ahead and let's write a string. String equals A, B, C, D. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's do list, my list. equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? Now, how can I return the first element? We can do that by indexing my list. I want the first one, and remember in programming, programming starts with 0. So if I hit enter, I should return the first item. Okay? Now, which is the next one? I want the third one. Okay, so again, my list, I want the third one. Again, is equals 2 because 0, 1, 2. This is the third one. This should return 3. Okay? And finally, I need to return the second to last, which is this one. So how do I do that? Well, we'll put my list. Now, if I write -1, I'll start at the very end, which is 6, but I don't want 6, I want 5. Okay? So, figure out which number you're going to use to grab 5. Basically, what you're going to do here, so let's define easy unpack, and we'll say numbers. Okay? Now, here, you want to declare variables. Okay? So, let's say A equals the first number. Okay? Now, remember, how do you get the first number? With indexing. So, you're going to write numbers and the index that you want, which is 0, okay? Now here we're gonna do B. We wanna get the second number, or I'm sorry, what was it? The third number, okay? Third number, and again, how do you get the third number? Index 2. So again, you should be taking these variables equals to the number and the index. B, I want the number and the index. And finally, C, I want the second to last. Okay? Now, once you have declared all of them, all you need to do is just give them back to me. Okay? Return A, B, and C. And that should be it. Okay? Let's go on to the next one. Here we go. So this one, I'm actually going to give you the answer because my answer matches the hint. So here you have some hints. If you want to look through them, go ahead. But I'm going to show you the answer here, and I'm going to explain it. So basically, we're given a list, and then we're given a digit. So if this number exists inside this list, I want to remove everything before that. Okay? So basically, I want to remove 1 and 2, and I'm left with 3, 4, 5, as you can see here. Okay? Here, if 2 is in here, here's 2. Okay? I want to remove everything before that and give me 2, 2, 3, 3. Oops, 2, 2, 3, 3. Okay? So let's take a look at the answer. Okay, so here, again, remember how I said if that number exists within the list, we have to check. Okay, so that's what this says here. If border, so that's what this integer stands for. Okay? Border, this is this right here. Okay? So if that number is inside the items, we're going to return the items.index at that border. So remember we looked at indexing. Well, this is just saying, okay, what index is that border at? Well, in this case, again, if it does exist, 3 would be at index 0, 1, 2. Okay? 3 would be at index 2. All right? So, if this number is actually inside the items, well, I want to get back the items, but only certain ones. I want to start with the border, and this means to the end. So this is blank here. So basically here, let me write this down just to show you what that means. Start, stop, step. Okay, when you're doing indexing, the first digit is where you start. Okay, so here, notice we're starting at the border. The next digit, notice it's a blank, so this is 0. The next digit is where you stop. So basically, this is saying go to the end. And now you can add a third one, which is step. And what increments are you going to go by? So if I have 2, I'm going to start at the first, I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to go in increments of 2. Okay? If I do 4, again, same thing. I'm going to start at the first, I'm going to stop at the end, and I'm going to go in increments of 4. Okay? Hopefully that didn't confuse you too much. So let's do the next one. Okay, so in this one, we want to take the first digit and we just want to add it to the end of the list. Okay? So how are we going to do that? So let's write define place first. We'll say item. Okay. So what we're going to do here. Now remember, if there is no item, well, we're just going to return an empty list. So we have to account for that. So we need to say if items. Basically, I'm asking, are there items? Are there items inside here? Okay. This just basically means if true. So if there's items there, there's true. If it's false, if there's no items, it's false. Okay. So if items, so with this pop method, it basically takes off, it pops off an element at this index. Okay, so I want to take off the first item. Okay, so right here, first item equals item.pop. Okay, so right now I've taken the first item and now it's gone. It's not on my list anymore. Now, if I return this list right here, if I just say return my list, well, I'm not gonna get the answer because I didn't add it back on. Okay, and here you're basically going to append onto the item. Okay, so let's say items dot append, and we want to add that first item here. Okay, first item. So basically, I'm checking if true. Okay, I'm checking if true. I'm taking off the first item, and I'm basically adding it right back onto it. Okay. And then here, we're gonna finally return those items. Okay. Now remember, what if there's nothing? Okay. Else, if there's nothing, what are you going to return? You're going to return an empty list. Okay? So hopefully this was enough information to help you solve that one. We're going to take a break here, and we're going to finish it up on our next video. Hope to see you there. Bye-bye.